Jacob, welcome to the podcast. I am really happy to have you on here. Boy, do I have some questions for you.
Well, it's good to be here. When you're talking about my favorite topic, which is me, I wouldn't want to miss it.
From Tunisia, might I add, which we will jump into. So, here's your introduction. Jacob Aldridge is a portfolio entrepreneur, international business advisor, a keynote speaker who has worked with more than 400 businesses across 14 countries, generating over $1 billion in new revenue. A virtual speaker Hall of Fame nominee, he has delivered workshops to thousands of business owners worldwide. Together with his wife Harmony and their young daughter, Jacob embraces a full-time travel lifestyle, world schooling while running businesses and exploring 6 to 10 countries a year. Currently, speaking to us from Tunisia, he shares how intentional business choices have allowed him to design a life of freedom, family, and impact. First and foremost, so why don't you summarize like how this all started? Because a lot of us go to college and we specialize in a very specific vertical and we work a 9 to 5 job and we become one of those people that you message at on Friday at 5 p.m. and they go, "Oh, sorry, I don't have access to my email. I'll respond to you back Monday morning." Where did you go wrong?
Oh yeah, I sucked at 9 to 5. And that whole specialized, it never worked for me. I went to college. I studied journalism, history, drama. I fell into a career in real estate business management, and I didn't fit anywhere because all of the jobs were looking for that specialist that you're talking about, the person who had the degree that said this is what I do, and that wasn't me. And I spent a lot of years. I really struggled in my early 20s to find meaningful work, a career, a decent income because I didn't have that specialty. And then I got really lucky with a corporate job where they were looking for somebody who had a little bit of everything, who could go out and talk about
Right.
accounting and business management and training and sales. And they needed someone really weird. And I happened to be someone really weird. And that was where I fell in love with business advisory, business consulting, business coaching for the first time, and did some more training, really built that as a career, and jumped in and went, there are millions of business owners around the world who started a business because they were good at something and had no idea how to run a business. And if I can go and help them with whatever that looks like for them, that's going to change their lives. And some of them will give me some money to do that. And 20 years later, here I am.
Very interesting. Uh, it sounds like you were doing the COVID lifestyle before it was cool, right? Before COVID
COVID
made it
was a
cool, which is
blessing.
awesome.
COVID was a blessing
Right.
in some ways. I did my first remote work in 2010 when me and my wife moved from Australia to London, and a few of my clients said, "Well, if you leave me, can I come too?" And so we were on Skype calls and trying to make that work. In
Yeah.
19, my daughter was born, and that's when my beautiful wife and I, Harmony, we'd set up the full time plan. We'd been working towards it for years, fully remote. Let's do this for as long as we possibly can. And half my clients left in 2019. They were like, this Zoom thing doesn't work. I want you in my boardroom. And then 2020 came along. We had to cancel all of our travel plans. But all of these clients went, Zoom thing's amazing. I don't need you in my office anymore.
Right.
I can talk to you from home. And it really became easy to work from anywhere. And once you can work from anywhere, we thought, well, let's go and work from everywhere. And so that's when we got the schooling sorted. And the start of 2025, we jumped the family on a plane and took off with a one-way ticket to see the
Super
world.
cool. Super cool. I actually really want to talk about the schooling in just a moment. But, when I asked you about COVID, the first thing you said was COVID was awesome. And I think that kind of gives me a glimpse into the fact that you have this diversification, you have this malleability to adjust. And for many, COVID did the exact opposite because people who had certain structures that were very rigid, that didn't have much flexibility, and when COVID put a shock to it, they found themselves in great financial distress. And, a lot of people who do traveling, they do it while they're single and this and that. But once they're married and they have kids, it becomes a lot harder to do. And it sounds like you managed to redefine that mold. And I can only imagine that traveling all the time keeps you motivated and keeps you excited. But at the same time, it's a double-edged sword that if you don't master the art of learning how to integrate yourself into a new environment quickly, a lot of that stuff, like, it takes about a day to settle in between moving between hotels, and you get a bad hotel and that screws up your whole day. Or, you plan things last minute, or sometimes you don't plan things at all and you're so used to just getting there and figuring it out. And sometimes that works beautifully and sometimes that can be absolute chaos. How do you deal with picking up and moving constantly while maintaining a schedule that creates the output for your clients?
Mm. And we're certainly planners. I think we're currently booked something like 14 months in advance for where we're planning to stay
Wow.
with that flexibility. And that's a key part of it. I mean, the bigger picture is I call myself a deep generalist. The master prefers whatever occurs. If you are that specialist, rigid, this is the only way that works for me, then the slightest thing goes wrong, everything collapses in your world. When
Well, it's
you
a
are
relic.
broad, yeah.
Yes, sorry to stop you, Jacob, but yeah, you're right. I mean, people who do have that rigid lifestyle, but it's more of a byproduct and a relic of a bureaucratic system where 30, 40 years ago, that is what you were supposed to do. You were supposed to look at the sheet, say, hey, what jobs are in demand, specialize 3 years, and you get your job. But given the exponential rate of technological growth, subject to Moore's law, we're seeing this kind of inability to predict the future where just the technological environment is shifting so fast. Then you have something like COVID coupled on top of it, which acts as a catalyst to these processes. Yeah, a lot of people are left thrown under the bus. Yeah, so it's amazing to see someone like you who's carved a lifestyle that is so immune to that.
Well, and it comes from that intentionality that you mentioned in that introduction, where you have that opportunity to say, life happens through me, not to me. What is it that I want to create for
Mm,
myself and for my family? And that's going to look like work. It's going to look like relationships. It's going to look like clients, friendships, spirituality, travel, whatever the things are that are important to you. And don't go living someone else's BS Instagram, TikTok lifestyle, because that won't
mm,
make you happy and that won't make you satisfied. And when something goes wrong and you're living someone else's life, then you are not going to have the energy or the focus to be able to wake up the next day and address that problem or fix it or change whatever's going on. And I think that's the
mm.
hardest part of that education system that we were raised in, where you're going to follow that checklist every day until you retire at 65, is we're not educated to have that kind of complete ownership about creating the whole of our own reality. And I was fortunate, I suppose, that early on I didn't fit into that mold. And so I had to go and build something that worked for me. And I know for Harmony, it was a little trickier. She spent 15 years as a lawyer before she retrained and built her legal firm coaching business. Legal career is very much you get on an escalator and it takes you up and up and up and up, and
And
eventually you
I
can.
imagine she works remotely as well.
Yes, yes. Now, and that was part of her transition was saying, well, hold on, if I stay as an employment lawyer, I've got to fit within all of these boxes, and I'm not actually really helping as many people as I could. Whereas if I come over and work with, and she specializes in female-led law firms, so a lot of people who go out and try and create something different in a law firm throw the baby out with the bathwater. And UK, Australia, USA, they're clamoring to work with her because she understands what it's like to be a lawyer, but she's not constrained by all of those things because she's gone out and
Mm.
said, well, this is what I'm going to create. This is how I'm going to help people.
Right. And it's like to take that leap, it's a scary one, and this is how people get locked in jobs they don't love because the way I look at it is when you work for another company, it's a certain price point of what you're paid to forget about your own dreams. And there's like a survival cost trap where a lot of people are stuck month to month. So they look at someone like you and it almost seems like a pipe dream. It's
Mm.
just out of reach because you have to you still need to pay rent next month. And in order to kind of move into your own system, you got to take a bit of a hit. Right? It's about a model you subscribe to. So when you're on a traditional 9 to 5 job, you kind of grow in this linear fashion. You kind of plateau pretty quickly, but you got the benefits. They all look enticing. And you've got like an incremental, salary upgrade to those
Yeah,
who
yeah.
are lucky. But to get off that system, to get off that linear model, you've got to take a huge leap. And to subscribe to an exponential model, which a lot of these models have a lot of degrees of freedom and they do grow exponentially. But the thing about exponential models is they start really, really slow. So you need like a 6 months buffer to master a new trade. You need about a year buffer to develop your own system. And that's the toughest part, getting started. So my first question to you is, what advice would you give to someone who wants to take a path similar to yours? And you tell me also a little bit about being an international business advisor. Is that a term you coined? Is that a degree? Is that a made up title that best describes what you do? And that'll be the specific, the tangible aspect of what you, Jacob, do. But what about someone who's going to, let's say, become a programmer or a web designer or a graphic designer, and they're working in the untangible space? What kind of advice would you give to them?
I think about half of all jobs at least are a made up term, right? There's the 50% that you high school jobs, or they're the things that 3-year-olds say they want to be. I want to be an astronaut. I want to be a firefighter. I want to be a lawyer. Most of the jobs that are out there in the world are things you never
Jacob,
know
that's
until
20
you
years ago. Today, it's I want to be a TikTok star.
do
And
it. I want to be an influencer, daddy. Um, my
correct.
my my 6-year-old daughter does think she has a YouTube channel. I think she films all these videos. We never publish them, but she loves running around and asking people to like and subscribe, which is adorable. And we will pull all of them out for her 16th birthday. I promise you. So, international business advisor. I coined that when I started moving around different countries. I was working more with SMEs at that point. I was the one who was international, but it gave me some branding and positioning away from a generic business coach who was laid off by a bank on Friday and called himself a business coach on Monday. Now that I work more with portfolio entrepreneurs, these dads mostly who own a meaningful stake in multiple businesses, so they're looking at import, export, global business opportunities. So it feeds into a little bit of that. And you're absolutely right. Getting started, whether it's this, where I had to invest in a lot of training, then the sales, the networking, all of that business building activity to start off with, whether it's doing that in another business that's a better fit for someone's skill set or interest. It really is commitment. Nassim Taleb, who wrote Black Swan, he said the three greatest addictions that humans have are heroin, carbohydrates, and a monthly paycheck. And I think that last one is so hard to get off. It's so hard to shake. The important thing, though, coming back to that, don't copy someone else's life. Don't copy the wrong homework. Don't look at Jacob and say, I want what Jacob has today, so I'm going to do what Jacob's doing today. You need to go, what was Jacob doing at the start
Well
of his
said.
business that got him here? Because if you pack up the family and go to North Africa, Southeast Asia, whatever it might be, and copy that part of my life, you're going to miss
Right.
the decades where I was waking up every day and I was making 5 or 10 phone calls
Right.
and I was going to every coffee meeting and networking event that I could. And I was writing
Right.
blogs and newsletters that 3 people read. And I was building all of that. And I was lucky that I started when I was making 40 grand a year when I quit my corporate job. So I wasn't earning big money that I had to let go of. But for some people, that's the hard part, is they have to try and do both in parallel for a while, or they have to have those savings
Right.
to just commit. But what's the worst that can happen? Your fear will kick in, but that's the question to actually answer. Write it down. If I try this, what is the worst that can happen? When we left, when we moved out, we packed up a house, sold all of our stuff, unenrolled from school, left all the clients behind in a different country. What's the worst that can happen is we go back in 12 months and then we're in exactly the same position. So we had nothing to lose. And I think that's the case for a lot of people when it comes to starting their own business. If you can overcome the pride of that not working out and you have to go back, that's all your stuff. No one else cares. If that's the worst that can happen is you're in the same place in 12 months, you would be anyway, you have nothing to lose.
I love it. And I love how you made the point to say that don't look at my travel lifestyle, look at what's important, the work I chose to get there. And I 100% agree. Your lifestyle is almost a byproduct, a symptom of honing in and mastering a certain set of skills, finding your your uniqueness factor, competing in an economic landscape effectively, doing all that correctly, and doing it with the foresight where you're not constrained to a location and you have skills that can be repurposed and you have skills that can be reused in different contexts. So you could adapt to a very quickly changing environment. That is what you need to focus on. And a byproduct of that, the result of that is that, hey, you could travel while you do it. But if you're completely just mesmerized by the fact that someone that you're traveling on vacation, that's not the right mindset. The right mindset is, how do you find what you love doing? How do you become really good at it? How do you focus on developing skills that can be reused and developing a career portfolio? And that takes a ton of work. And I absolutely love how you frame that. Now, but then you have this duality here where there's a saying, a jack of all trades and a master of none. So when you're navigating the career portfolio environment and you're developing all these skills that could be, that can be harvested for just making money and providing services, and you have this like lack of complacency where you constantly move around or you constantly inch outwards. How do you, and I know you said you're an international business advisor, but I imagine that is a pretty malleable uh, skill set, especially as you move around. How do you navigate that duality of, doing a whole lot of nothing and staying focused and becoming really good and honing in on a specific set of skills?
And I like to flip that. I like to say I'm the master of all trades and I'm jack of the 9 to 5 myth. That's my
Mm,
approach to how you develop it. And the simple I do one of my keynotes is on becoming a deep generalist. So there's the jack of all trades. And pre-industrial revolution, the jack of all trades was fantastic because he could help fix your plow in the morning, fix your boots in the afternoon. He'd do a little bit of farming and would be able to help the community. With the Industrial Revolution, we created bigger cities. We created specialization. And that Jack, who could help a little bit across a lot of different things, they had a width of skills, was no longer particularly valuable because as individuals, we had access to the specialist in a lot of those different areas. And that then led us into that entire culture that you were describing
mm.
that you and I both grew up in, where suddenly we had to focus and be this specialist. And a lot of the tech companies, Google talks about the T-shaped human. They've got the depth in one or two skills, and then they've got more of that width, more width, more of that perspective. For me, it's how do you as an individual really develop depth across a lot of different skills, and not even things that you think are going to be specifically helpful for business, but just things that are of interest to you. Because when you can develop a width and a depth of skills, you get a whole lot of benefits. You stand out. You are unique. You are not one of 100 programmers that graduated from that course this year. You are one of 3 programmers who graduated from that course and is a really good verbal communicator. You're one of 1 in the state that graduated from the course who's a great verbal communicator and has an interest in ornithology. These are the things that help you to stand out.
I,
And
I
you
I
never
love your mindset and how you reframe ideas
And it's AI.
to
AI is going to be specialized. AI is going to beat us. If you have one skill that you are the best in the world at that skill and you make your living from that, then the robots are coming to get you. It's like Terminator 2. They're just hunting you down. When you have that breadth and depth to be unique, you can create new things. And the poster child I love to reference in that speech is
right.
Gutenberg, the guy who invented the printing press. He built books. Lots of people built books. Lots of people for thousands of years had made books that were all handwritten. What was it that was special about him? It was that his father was a jeweler. His first career was an apprentice jeweler. He knew how to work with little bits of metal to create the movable type, those little uppercase, lowercase letters you put into bookbinders. And then he lived in a wine growing region. So every harvest, he helped the local community with these giant machines that pressed the wine to create the wine for the farmers. And everybody had to pitch in and everybody had to learn a little bit. He wasn't a winemaker, but he knew enough about that to be able to to make that connection in his brain that AI is not going to ever be able to make. Do you know, well, if I take that from wine and that from jewelry and that from what
Right.
books need and this from what my customers need, and I can piece all of that together, then suddenly I have the greatest invention of at least the 14th century, but quite possibly the last 1,000 years of the printing press. And
I've
you, someone watching it, don't have to create the printing press, but what is it that you can bring if you shake off some of those shackles?
I love that framing, and I think you're 100% right. I tend to look at AI, and I mean, we're talking AI broadly, but we're really seeing the evolution of a natural language processor, something like ChatGPT, kind of unfold. And I look at it as like the average of all the essays, or, pick a certain vertical. Let's just say, you're asking AI to write an article. What it's going to do is it's going to collect all the articles on the internet, and it's going to give you the safest, response. Look at that as being just like an average B plus student. It's great. It's a great answer. Now, you're talking about the threat of AI to our jobs. Now, you want to look at yourself and be like, hey, am I a B minus student? And if I'm a B minus student and I'm just a cookie cutter with not a lot of a uniqueness factor relative to other writers, yeah, my position is severely threatened by AI. But if you think of someone like you're describing, where someone who has got the breadth, the depth, he's got a whole bunch of set of skills, he's got a unique vision, he's got that uniqueness factor that separates him from his competitors and that separates him from the norm, that deviates him from the norm, and he's an A minus student doing, or an A plus student doing something that makes him exceptional, like you described, compared to everyone else. I think not only is he not threatened by AI, he could leverage AI to do a lot of the stuff that's repetitive, that's patternized, and allow him to double down on what makes him exceptionally unique, and it gives him an advantage. So you're seeing kind of like, in some sense, the process running amok, where the people who are above average are going to have an even stronger advantage, and you're going to have that middle class dissipate, where AI is going to threaten that middle class and below. Um, and I 100% agree. And I actually love how your lifestyle is carved around uniqueness. And, you don't have a 9 to 5. So my question to you now is, uh, you have no work hours, and that sounds like a beautiful thing. But how do you balance your work life with your personal life? Because there really is no clear line.
I have a crippling mortgage. I have $1 million in debt. That's very motivating every morning. I partly jest. Um, uh, it comes back to that intentionality. What is it that I'm looking to build for my family? And some of that is wealth creation. We've done well. We want to continue to do well. We want to, raise. We're only able to have the one child, but we want to be able to, invest and support her future as well as our own. And we're now at that stage where we're supporting aging parents as well. When you've got that clear motivation, that makes it very easy to wake up every day from an internal level. And then you add in good clients working only with good humans that you enjoy spending time with and who want to work with you. And that's also very motivating. Just before you and I had this conversation, I was running a morning sales training workshop with a client way back in Australia. And they've got 15 people sat around in the kitchen with me up on the television, going through some of the challenges they're having and some of the solutions that they're going to apply this week. It's very easy for them on a Monday morning to show up disinterested, flat, and that can then feed back into me. When they show up engaged and interested and they're excited to ask me questions and to learn from me and to apply what I'm talking about, then that gives me the energy to keep coming back and to keep going day by day. And choosing the balance is important so that you don't end up working 80 hours a week. And I'm working a lot less this year since we went traveling and took on the world schooling. But that motivation is still there to work with good people because it's helping them and that's energizing. And then having some of those financial goals to keep, at least building my business, whatever growth looks like for this phase of it, so that I've got what I need for my family and for my personal goals.
Love it. I absolutely love it, Jacob. Now, where do you see yourself in 5 years from now?
Everywhere, anywhere. There's a whole lot of choices. This was a big experiment we did at the start of 2025 when we pulled our daughter out of school. We had attempted in 2019 to do this. 2020 showed up and changed a whole lot of the plans. 2025 was, let's see if this will work. We've got to keep the business running. We've got to wind back. So I now work 3 days a week, and I'm in charge of the schooling
Oh,
two
wow.
days a week. So that's working with fewer clients. It's working with a much more targeted selection of clients that I want to help. Will that continue to do the financial things we need it to do for our lifestyle? Will the schooling work, or are we going to be holding back, our daughter's potential? Will the travel work? Will the chaos of all of that moving around be too much for us? And we just sat down with intentionality and said, well, let's do it, because the worst that can happen is we end up back in Australia or back in London where we used
Right.
to live, and nothing changes. Let's see. So we weren't looking with a 5-year plan. It was, what are we doing right now? And it is working. We're committed. We're going around again in 2026. We could carry this on for who knows how many years. So in 5 years, I might still be doing this, working part-time, educating my daughter, visiting the 6 to 10 countries a year. We may have settled down as she heads towards high school. We may have rejigged the business model. I might have taken a lot of the systems that I built around how to be this business consultant, this business advisor, and built a training program to help a whole lot of other people who really want to live a similar lifestyle. Or our investments go very well, particularly some of the startups that we've got some money in, and maybe I am really not working at all in 5 years' time. There's all of those opportunities in front, because
Mm,
we've planted the seeds to give ourselves that optionality. The master prefers whatever occurs, because we've got our generalist feelers out.
yeah. Where have you traveled in the past year?
This year so far, we've been to Japan, went to
Wow.
Tokyo Disneyland for our daughter's birthday. A few trips through the United Kingdom, particularly England, got some clients there, a lot of existing relationships. I'm a citizen of the UK as well. We had 2 months at a world schooling farm in Spain, which was quite an experience, meeting a lot of other
Mm,
weirdo families. We're just coming to the end of 2 months here in Tunisia in North Africa. And then we head to Cyprus. We are going to Lapland to meet Santa Claus just before Christmas. And then in between some other trips to the UK and Australia for some client work, we're heading back to Southeast Asia. So Christmas this year will be in Malaysia.
wow. Now, do you travel affordably? Do you stay at hotels? Like, how do you normally? And you probably have the best credit cards. I mean, you've probably done your homework.
Well, I'm not American. See, American credit card systems are head and shoulders above what you'll get in terms of rewards anywhere else in the world.
Mm,
So that's a little bit of a limiting factor. We do a little bit with points. It's not quite as advantageous with my tax
mm,
residency as it is if you're a US citizen. We've got pretty clear criteria as a family, and as a family that does this coaching and consulting work. So we do a lot of video calls, a lot of scheduled calls with clients, a lot of spontaneous phone calls, video calls with clients. So we need 2-3 bedroom accommodation, houses, apartments, because we need an office. We need a location, which is the school location. That's not just something we do at the dining table and then we pack it all up and come back the next day. This is
mm,
the school, this is the work, this is the sleep. Family space, so kitchen, laundry is helpful. That tends to come when you have a 3-bedroom house, and they normally come with a good kitchen and a laundry. We want to be walked to park. Access to a swimming pool is important. That kind of outdoor activity for us as all three of us, particularly with a 6-year-old. And so once we nail that criteria, it's then finding within the budget, where is it that we're going to be able to commit. And that's one of the advantages of Southeast Asia, we've certainly found over other destinations, is that your money goes a little bit further with some of those criteria. We've done a lot of
yeah.
great cultural experiences this year,
And
particularly with,
Malaysian, Indonesian food is absolutely amazing too.
yeah,
So,
roti
yeah,
canai for breakfast, and it's like
yeah.
under $1 US. I swear I put on 10 pounds last time we went to Malaysia, and I'm not ready
I love
for it.
South Asian food. Yeah. Yeah, no, it's a good place to be. Malaysia's awesome. Indonesia is this beautiful islands too, and Bali, your money goes a long way as well.
Yeah.
A little bit, tourist structure, but it's still an awesome place to be.
And
Um, Where could people get in touch with you, Jacob?
Well, the easiest way to find me is at jacobaldridge.com. So that's my website. That's mostly business, a little bit of these quirky things that I've done in the past, and a little bit of the lifestyle. And then if you're really interested in the travel side of things, our family Instagram is at the Harmony Family, and so that's where we share mostly just the specific travel that we're doing and some of the lifestyle around the world schooling and the remote work. So if that's of interest to people, they can follow us on Instagram. I'm not
I just
chasing
did.
a whole lot of clients. I love being able to share my story to help other people realize that they can live whatever wild, outrageous life they want. And so if there is anyone out there who just wants to ask some questions or sense check their dreams, then, it's my great honor to be able to help with that over email, WhatsApp, or phone call.
I love your energy, Jacob, and I love your entrepreneurial spirit, and I appreciate your innovative mentality. I think a lot people have a lot to learn from you, and I'm really happy we spoke. I've learned a lot from you, so I look forward to your adventures, and only good things ahead.
And that is the way to manifest. And yeah, look, I love the show. I love the speaker, the people that you speak with, and the stories that you get to share. So I'm glad to have been one of them, Michael. Thank you.